Welcome to the Real Estate View. We are so excited this week. I'm Miki, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Kim and Lorraine. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hello.
How are
All
you?
right. Good. Excited.
How's everybody?
Yes.
Lorraine, how are you?
I am doing pretty well. It's an interesting time, or at least time of the year. We're anticipating the holidays. We're anticipating the end of the year. So there's a lot of exciting things happening, especially in business. There's a lot of things happening. So I'm so excited I can't stay still. That's how excited I am.
I love that.
Are you excited for business or are you excited for the holidays?
Both.
I was
Both.
both. It needs to be both.
Yes.
That's
And
the right.
it's a nice day today. I'm in New York, as most of our listeners know. So it's a nice sunny day. So that makes me happy.
Yay.
Awesome. So Lorraine, you're in New York. Have you noticed any changes in the market there at all? Are things still like hot, or just cooling down a little bit?
So it's interesting. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was kind of exiling New York, right? So
Mhm.
Manhattan was literally like if you can picture those movies where you have the hay kind of like blowing in the
Like the
streets because there's
tumbleweed?
nobody there. That's
Tumbleweed.
that's kind of the visual that I have of Manhattan, at least a few months ago. But now we have the vaccine mandate in place, and a lot of employers are asking people to come back to work, to physically come back into the office. So that's driving a lot of people back into Manhattan and back to New York. So the activity has been picking up. And then again, just going back to the holidays, I mean, one of the biggest attractions in New York is the tree, right? Like the big tree in Rockefeller Center. So we're definitely going to see a lot more people coming to New York for sure. And, I know that you're in Chicago, which is another metropolitan city. So have you seen any movement or any changes in the market?
Well, for out here in Chicago, things are still moving. People are still buying. The prices are starting to level off a little bit, but it's still a seller's market. People are still, your property is still being sold pretty quickly if it's priced well. And people are still, a lot of investors are still purchasing. There's still, rehabs are still going on. Yeah, I mean, the market is, I can't complain about the market out here.
Yeah. And Miki, I know you're technically in two markets at the moment. You're bi-coastal for a period of time. So what have you noticed in either market or both?
So both market are super hot. So my primary residence now is in North Carolina, near the Triangle Research. And if you know the Triangle Research, we have not only the IT central there, but Apple is actually coming in 2 years. And so this just creates a lot of people, a lot of migration coming into this region. We are actually the epicenter of immigration in the whole United States. People are just coming into this region. And so a lot of building is happening. They're expecting an increase of 20K houses in the next couple of years, just because there's a shortage of housing. That's how it is. People are coming in. So there's this boom. On the other side, for our business right now in the Baltimore market, we are still in a seller's market, a little bit like Chicago. And so things are still moving. Yeah.
And
well, that's good to know.
Because I think for all the markets, because usually in most years, right, the unofficial ending of the home buying season usually happens after Labor Day, right? People are sort of settled in, or they're kind of getting readjusted to school and work and all of these things. So to hear that there's still movement in the market, people are still buying, people are still selling, they're still looking to make moves. It's really encouraging, especially for us as investors, because we need movement. If things aren't moving, then there's no money being made, right? So we need things to
I was marketing for one of our houses, and my main message of my marketing was get your home ready for the holidays.
Yeah.
And I was just rethinking that in my head. Like really, it's true. People are now buying so that they are in their home for the holidays.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because ideally you want to be sitting in your new home, having your first
Exactly.
Thanksgiving or your first Christmas in your
Yeah.
house. So people tend to try to, to get the buying done before
Yeah.
that.
Before
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
And
I
you know
just
what's so interesting about the holidays and when we're talking about real estate, I personally enjoy driving around and just seeing all the decorations on the
me
houses.
too.
And so now we're sort of seeing that now, even with Halloween. I mean, all of the pumpkins, all of people have gotten really creative with their decorations. So it's actually pretty nice and kind of adds into the marketing, right? To your point, Miki. It's
Yeah.
just like, okay, well, do you want more space? Do you want to be able to decorate?
Yeah.
How is this living room for your new Christmas tree? Or look at this dining room to be able to host your family for the
Yeah.
holidays. So it's really cool. And it kind of brings us into the topic that we want to discuss for today, which is acquisitions, because we do all of this work to be able to get in front of potential prospects or leads. But then once you have them, then what? I mean, what are you doing with them? And that's kind of where acquisitions comes in, where you have to have a certain skill set to be able to actually close the deal or secure the deal, I should say. And even though we're focusing on different, I want to say, niches at this point, we all do a certain aspect of acquisitions to be able to
Yes.
move our businesses forward.
And I like how you're saying, Lorraine, it is a skill, right? I mean, you can have how many leads you want, but if you can't convert them into actual deals, like that won't feed your business.
Exactly. And I
Correct.
know,
I mean, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, we've been talking for weeks about marketing, and you do all this marketing, whether it be through Facebook or you have your VAs reaching out to sellers to see who wants to sell their house. You get these leads coming in. Now, what do? You have to convert them into deals.
Yes. And I think this is where the skill sets come in. Um, I know you and I belong to same kind of groups, but that's because we continuously learn, right? You learn to negotiate. This is where your negotiation skills comes handy, because you have to be able to talk to that person. You have to be able to build that rapport so that you understand what their needs are and that you can offer what is needed so that you can actually close on that transaction. And so I did took several classes on just sales and negotiation to become better at that.
And I
So,
think you
Miki,
you said it's yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, I think you touched upon something really important, because sometimes the misconception is that you give out this blanket offer, like, oh, just as an
Mhm.
example, we buy houses for cash, right? And that can appeal to some people, but that's not always a situation for every seller who's out there who might be looking to sell their property. It could be more of a creative type of option, or maybe they're not looking for cash right away, maybe they're looking for more of a creative financing. So I
Yeah.
think what you said in terms of listening to what this potential prospect or lead is looking for, and then sort of understanding what your business does and being able to help them with their problem is really probably the key thing when you're looking to acquire or close a deal, is knowing what works for that particular person, not just something that works because your business does it. I don't know if that makes sense.
no, it definitely does make sense. So, Miki, I know you handle a lot of the acquisitions for your business.
Yes.
So, just tell us a little bit about where do you find your deals?
So I network a lot with the Baltimore market has a lot of wholesalers. And so I do network with those wholesalers. But we did also at one point do a lot of those cold calls, finding, buying those lists of potential home buyer that fit our criteria, which at that time last year, because, the market has changed. Last year, it was before pre-COVID, it was people that were ready to downsize their house. And that most of the time their house had been paid cleared, and then so depending on the period where they had bought it, we knew that the potential was higher. So we did we could call them, and then you go through setting the appointment, so you're in front of them, and then you answer questions, you're there. I think my biggest mind shift was to understand that I'm really a service provider.
Yeah.
Whether I closed the deal or not, I was there to answer the questions and to provide the service. So for many people, they weren't ready to sell, but they were ready, to have other kind of solution in their life. And so we did provide them with the resources. What it did for us is that they referred other friends to us, right? The friend that was ready to sell. And so that's how we got to have our deals. But really, the mind shift of knowing that you're here first to provide a service, and then if that service comes into your parameters of you buying it, then you get your deal.
Right. I think a lot of people don't understand, or they just, gloss over the fact that, you don't always have to go in for the kill,
Yeah,
You're not always going to get the deal, but as long as you know that you were there to help somebody. And I think
yeah,
that's what's important in what we do, is being able to help people, because you may not be able to buy their place, but
yeah,
they can send you a referral, and you might get 3 or 4 different houses down the line from that one person.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think also, not to send the wrong message, like Lorraine, you were saying, I used to say all the time, we buy houses cash and fast. Like, I love saying fast and cash. Like, I thought it was great sentence of mine. And then I've noticed, like, some of those people, like, later they said no to me, but then later on they sold it to my competition. So I went back and I asked, I was like, I was kind of offering you the same. I understand that you went down the other route. I just want to know why, or could you explain to me? And then that poor lady said, you wanted to sell, you want me to buy it fast. She's like, I didn't want fast. And I was like, oh, so not everyone want cash, not everyone want fast.
Right. One size does not fit all.
Exactly. And so once you understand that you're really a service provider, and literally there's been deals that were on the back burner for 6 months where we've worked with the seller to get him to the point because he was going to retire. So there's like those time frames are people that have surgery, right? You just have to be there and to wait. So there's all those particulars that you have to keep in mind when you are providing a service.
That's very well said. So, I mean, for anybody just starting out, for any entrepreneurs that just want to that's starting out in real estate, what do you recommend is the best way for them to go about finding deals? Because you're really good at finding deals. You are the acquisition specialist in your business. So,
yes.
But I am very into simple things, right? Again, we always talk about consistency. So you pick something that you will be consistent with it, because the consistency will bring result, right? You just can't launch a campaign and then 2 weeks later change your mind. So I like doing driving for dollars, because you drive to go everywhere, grocery shopping, and trust me, there's houses everywhere. So you drive around, notice which properties look, not necessarily distressed, but that might be a potential. Write them down. Then skip trace. Skip trace means you look down into the public record, because it's public. You can find them, of the county. You find who is the owner, who are the owners. And then from then, I usually write a letter and I put in my business card that has my picture on it. And I will literally handwrite to that property saying like, hey, I've noticed your property. I'm looking to buy a property in your area. This is what I do. And let me know if I can help you with it. And then after that, you go into a follow-up. Then I can drive in that same neighborhood, because I will drive anyway. I will put a post-it on the door saying that I was here. I think there is something very special about the number 4. I don't know. Like, people reach out to me once they have like 4 touches, meaning that, either they got the mail, the post-it on the door, the call, or some other type of contact with me, or I can always knock on the door as well. And so it takes like 4 times for me, but those 4 times, somehow there's like a relationship that's been that's started to build, although we didn't speak, but the relationship is there just because they've noticed your handwriting, they've noticed your name, right? And then if you put a website there, it's even better because they will go and they will Google you out. This is what people do. Even
Yeah.
elderly people, they're going to look online and see if you're the real thing.
Right. So I know I've been speaking to a lot of new female investors, and what I usually recommend is to drive around the neighborhoods. Get to know the areas, get to know the style of the houses, get to know the zip codes. Because when somebody sends you something like a wholesaler or even a realtor, if somebody sends you anything, and develop lots of relationships with realtors everywhere. When somebody sends you something, you'll be able to just say, oh, you know what, I know that street, I know those types of houses, and I know what they can and can't sell for.
Yes.
So
And
it kind of cuts down on your desktop analysis time. So
exactly.
you're not spending like an hour or so analyzing one property when you can do that a couple of properties in an hour.
And when you take areas like you, Lorraine, in New York, right? It's just impossible to know all the neighborhoods, right? Like,
Yeah.
how would you go about with your neighborhoods?
Well, I would do the same thing, the driving for dollars, because to your point, I mean, and to both of your points, actually, it's important to know what's going on in your area. And for me, a lot of times I'll just drive through and see, like, oh, look, there's a new store or there's a new restaurant or what have you. And so those are good talking points to build rapport when you are talking to a seller. It's like, oh, yeah, I was just in your neighborhood. I saw the new KFC down the street or whatever it is. And it helps to at least help the other person know that, okay, no, this is actually someone who lives in this area, who wants to improve this area. It's not just, some iBuyer, as we've spoken about in previous calls, that just wants to buy my house and do whatever with it. It's really bringing that human component to the conversation. So I think that's really helpful.
And for
And I
after
was
go ahead, Larry, finish.
No, I was just going to say to you, Kim, because I know the suggestion that you just gave, I thought was awesome, because I know, or at least I would think, that those are some of the tactics that you have used as well, because you basically discovered a whole new market, or I shouldn't say discover, but you had to learn a whole new market from where you were previously. So I'd be curious to know how was that transition? I mean, you took time to learn the market. You were previously in New York, and now you're in a whole other area. So I'm
Yes.
sure you have a lot of gems to drop in terms of how do you get accustomed to a new market, being new to the area?
Literally just driving around, picking a neighborhood and just going there and driving. I mean, and coming to Chicago, you always hear, oh, there are lots of pockets where, people deem it not the nicest. So,
Right.
you kind of learn those areas pretty quickly. And then you just drive around. You drive around. You look at the stuff, because I've always loved houses. I say we because me and my partner, we do it together. We always loved houses, from looking at houses, going to open houses. We kind of did that when we were dating, just going to open houses together.
Oh,
That
that's
was like,
cool. That's actually really cool.
that's how you're meant to be. So
Right.
so
You
that's what we
open
did
house
when we
together, you stay together. That's
exactly.
what it is.
So when we moved here into Chicago, to Illinois, that's what we did. We just drove around, learned the styles of the houses, learned, just watch the market. You go on Zillow or Redfin, and you just, you look at what they sell for. You just watch everything. You write things down. When things sell, I used to write those things down so I could see what ARVs are in the area. So when something came up in that neighborhood, I know what the ARV is already. So I just plug my numbers in, and I know what I can offer on that property. So
I love what you're saying, because in acquisition, literally, it's a system.
Yeah.
It's a system. You have to have your spreadsheet with your zip code, with the average house, number of bedrooms, all of that. It needs to be there. Those are like your go-to notes. And then once you make your offer, you have to follow it. Organize yourself in a way that there's a systematic approach, right? And then you follow that property until it is sold to someone. Until it is sold. If it takes 2 years on your spreadsheet, that's okay. You call them, put yourself a note every 3 months. They're on your list to touch base again, because you never know. well, things happen. Like it happens.
Yeah, because even, I do the acquisitions, for our company. And even if it's a property that we put an offer in on and we didn't get it, I still bookmark it. I mark it
Yeah,
as a favorite, because I want to know what did this person pay for this property? You know what I mean?
exactly.
How far off was
Yeah.
I?
Well, that's it. So acquisitions role is to be able to offer the best offer and to be competitive into the market and to know actually how much the other people are doing. So because you're keeping your statistic or your KPIs, you're
Mhm.
able to know, am I offering too high? Right? Like suddenly you're closing on several deals. That's not a good sign. Like if no one, if you're beating everybody every time, there's like there's like a
You're
problem.
probably overpaying.
Yeah, like probably. So you need to know those numbers so you know where you're standing. Also, if you're always you know it's not working well for you, you're always way lower than the rest of the people, and you find that you're not competitive, there are ways to go with that. It happened to us. We went back to our hard money lender. I showed him the numbers. I was like, hey, those are the 5 deals that I did a desktop analysis, and this is how much it went for, like 10K more than us. And the reason why I didn't get it, it's because my cost of borrowing
Mhm.
the money from you is too expensive. And so when I brought this, he was like, hey, we could have done 5 deals. I was like, yeah, we could have. Let's make it happen now. And so he did lower his percentage and points
Wow. I mean,
because
that's a good tip.
yes, I had something to show, right? He knew we were serious, and so those are the type of thing that acquisition does. Acquisition is responsible of knowing exactly how the market is. That's like the primary role, and then to close on the deal, effectively close on
Mhm.
good deals. Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like your
I
role is
think,
to make deals.
yeah,
Yeah,
don't force the deal if it's not a deal.
exactly. Yeah.
One thing that you said about having a process or a system in place, I think that's important, not only because once you have a system, now you know what you're going for. You're not targeting just every single property that you see that's in an area that's like, oh, okay, that looks distressed. Let me go after that one. It's like, okay, no, I know this area. I know I want to be in a certain zip code, or I know I want to target a certain type of property, whether it's single family, multifamily, commercial, or whatever it is. So having a system kind of what's the word that I want to use? It focuses your attention to what you're targeting. And then, going back to the private money lender or the hard money lender that you were working with, it's because you had this system. It's because you
Yeah.
were like, okay, no, these are the numbers. This is what I'm looking at. This is what the end product is going to be. And because you had all that organization, it's like, oh, okay, this person's not just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. They actually know what they're doing and they know what they want to target. And so I think that's also a key to this process as well.
Yes. And if we go further down the route of like your acquisition team, what it looks like, there's several ways of, creating your team. I know you, Kim, you've worked with virtual assistant, right?
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Working with virtual assistants, it can be a little bit challenging, but VAs, they do help your business. You have your VAs, they're making the cold calls, and once they speak to a seller who's interested in selling their property, they then, pass that on
Yeah, that's when you
to
step
me. And that's
in.
when I get on the phone and I speak to the seller, and have a conversation with them, find out what their needs are, because it really is all about them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to do. We're here to help them.
We've trained our acquisition specialist into, all of our sales and negotiation skills and all. And then after a while, it was just too much. So we've downsized actually. And the way we work now in our company is that we work with wholesalers that are actually our kind of acquisition specialists, meaning that I can provide my list to them. They organize themselves, they do the follow up and all, and then they hand me down the deal. And
Nice.
so for me, this had tremendously changed the way our business work, meaning that I don't have to pay anyone. I don't have a payroll. I don't have reports to have with the person. It's really like a business relationship, me going for the service with
Mhm.
to that wholesaler. So there's really different way of having an acquisition team, and you just have to find out what works, and you can experiment. Like, Kim have done the VAs and still doing it. I had a team in the past, we changed it. So I guess it always it depends on what you want.
Yeah, it's a business, things
Yeah, yeah,
you're tracking what works and what doesn't work. And when you find out something doesn't work, you make a change to it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
Yeah,
Lorraine, I
and I
know.
mean, my acquisition process is a little bit different only because, I'm dealing more with passive income, right? So a lot of my acquisition process is geared around the due diligence that I'm doing on particular assets that I'm finding. So I have gone the VA route in terms when I was doing cold calling and direct mail and door knocking and all of that stuff. But for me, acquisitions is more about research instead of actually speaking directly with the seller. So it's a little bit different, but the same concept. You still need to have a system in place. I still have a list of people that I need to contact in order to verify information that I need to in order to make a decision of whether or not I'm going to purchase a note or not. So for whoever is listening, I mean, acquisitions looks different in different businesses, whether you're working with a VA, whether you're doing it yourself, whether you're outsourcing, whether you're just basically confirming information. So I think maybe the takeaway could be just know what your business is and what you need to do in order to get it to a certain point, and then just execute on that process, I would say.
Yeah,
yes,
and outside of marketing, acquisitions is the second most important, in my
yes.
opinion, part of the business.
You have
Agreed.
to close on that deal, otherwise there's no deal, right?
Right.
Like you
Nobody
need a
eats.
closing. Yeah, nobody eats. Yeah,
I think I was saying to Kim, I was saying to you ladies earlier in the week, it's like, well, at least I think marketing sort of builds awareness or gets you at the attention of your prospect or your leads. Acquisition secures the deal. And then what we'll probably get into in some future episodes is the actual funding. The funding
yes,
closes the deal because yes,
yeah,
you need the marketing to get the attention, you need the acquisitions to actually have the asset, but then nothing really happens without the funding. So we'll get to
I
that
know.
topic a little bit later on. But I think, yeah, it's been important, or it is important to speak about acquisitions, because I don't think people kind of gloss over it sometimes. Like, oh yeah, I got the lead, I closed on the house. It's like, okay, well, wait, what's the process to actually get the property secured, get it under contract?
Yeah.
And in the rehab field, we have the tendency of thinking that the rehab phase, this is really where the work is, right? The renovation. It seems like, yes, it takes time, you know. Don't discard that. It does take time. But really, when you're in an acquisition, working on a deal, like, have you noticed how many phone calls you make, right?
Absolutely.
How many, like, all those little details, the insurance, all that, the funding part.
Hmm.
There is tons of things that is happening in that background to close
Yep.
that deal. Like the day you close, you sign, this is where you get to be like off that deal. But
Yeah.
until there, when I say that sometimes we work 6 months on a deal, like that daily phone call with that
Yeah.
seller that needed your
Hmm.
support, it's like, sometimes I'm just like, hey, I do think that acquisition is working hard,
Yes.
is
Agreed.
working super hard. It's for at least in our company, and I don't know if it's because we attract that, but it's been very rare that it's like we close in 3 weeks. I don't know about you, Kim. Like, have you ever closed like you hear those stories, people are like, oh, we closed in 2 weeks and like 3 weeks. The seller was, signed right away and he was ready to go.
Well, I mean, there's a difference. Speaking with the seller, getting a contract signed, after the contract is signed, and it goes off to the attorney, because Illinois is an attorney state. So once we
Uh-huh.
send it off to the attorney, we typically do close in 3 weeks, but getting it to the signing
That's
of the
smart.
contract phase takes a long time. Sometimes it depends on the seller. Some sellers need, a little bit more attention than others. They're just not ready, and you
Mhm.
just, you give them the time that they need.
And when I was saying we're a service provider, this is not the regular route for a seller, right? Usually we go smoothly into like you work with your realtor, things are managed and all. But when people are distressed or they're going through hard things in their life, they are emotionally so fragile. Like they need emotional support. We have, I will always remember this seller where it was COVID. So we couldn't get into the office at the same time as him. And he was signing with like the camera in front of him and the lawyer in the other room telling him. For him, it was just super overwhelming. Like even driving, he was calling me, driving to the place. He's like, I don't know. Am I going to miss my exit? Is this going to? I think I park at the right place. Let me see. Can you confirm, Miki? I'm showing you the building. And I can understand that. There was just so many stress factor in his life
Yeah.
that those people really do need help. I mean, who is going to hold you like that through a transaction, right?
You're right.
Right.
I mean, and there's just the fact that some sellers, they don't even they don't have to be distressed in the sense where their property is distressed or they have a particular, something going on. Some people just don't want to sell their house the traditional way. They just don't want people coming in and out of their houses. They don't want to have to schedule time, be out of their house. They just want it to be a one and done. You come look at it, tell me what you're going to offer me, and we'll sell the house. Some people just want to do it that way.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I
ladies,
think that's part of the benefit of working with not only investors but experienced investors, because like Miki said, I mean, you're not just a service provider. Sometimes you're a psychologist,
Oh yeah.
sometimes you're a teacher, sometimes you wear the many hats that it involves in order to get the deal done, but not just to get the deal done, but to help this person throughout the
Yes.
process. Because
Yes.
I mean, a house is probably one of the biggest expenses most people are going to purchase.
Yes.
And so selling that is a process in itself, or it is very involved. And so
it
having
is.
someone who's gone through it and who can work through it with you and who understands, because we've done this however many times, is really helpful.
I love what you're saying because I think we have the tendency of forgetting that for those sellers, they have not sold that many houses, right?
Exactly.
And so, yes, our experience for us, it's not as overwhelming. It's not, we've done it several times. And so we're able to really just tune down on the anxiety. And
Yeah.
that's why there's less stress going down the route with us.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, we're coming up on our time today.
Already?
We
Yeah.
have gone through acquisitions from A to Z for the most part, taking you through the full gamut. So
So, is there anything else we wanna say before we leave this week?
I think for me the biggest takeaway is just don't think that all your time has to be put towards marketing or all of it towards funding. There needs to be a healthy balance in order to have a successful business, I would say.
Yeah.
And acquisitions doesn't get enough credit,
Yeah.
I think.
Remember, you are a service provider. You need to be people first. This is how it works, really. You need to be people first business. Yeah.
What they said. And everybody, so this is the end of our show. So be sure to go to our Facebook page. We have the Real Estate Vue on Facebook, and like and follow us, and also check us out on YouTube and like and subscribe.
Yes.
You can watch some of our past episodes. And until next week, know your why.
Know your heart.
And know your purpose. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.